and he is a Carleton alum, and he graduated in 1979. And so since then, he has done many, many things. One of the things that you'll hear about is the 3 Minute Mental Makeover, which he's going to explain. And this is a program that he developed to reduce stress for patients, families, and health practitioners, but all of us as well. And he is currently a pediatric cardiologist at the Advocate Children's Hospital. And yeah, is taking this time to teach us all some helpful tools in stress reduction during this time. So I will hand it over to David.
Great. Well, thank you so much. First of all, let me just ask, can you see my screen here? That's a yes? Okay. So yes. Let me do my slideshow. And so I'm going to be talking today about, my name is David, or Dave. I kind of change what I go by, but I'm going to be talking today about mindfulness, meditation, and mental makeovers, how to survive and thrive during the pandemic. And so thanks so much, Emily and Janet. I've had the good chance to talk to them over the last couple of weeks, let's get going. So let me first of all talk about why I write. So a lot of people ask me, well, like, why are you doing writing? You're like, you're not really a writer. And so the reason, it all comes down to a Carleton program that I attended in 1976 in Trier, Germany, along with my friend Bob Cronin and a bunch of other dear people. And so what do we do in this program? Well, we hitchhiked. Somehow Bob and I were able to convince the professor. First, he had a lot of different things that we were supposed to do that all seemed very academic. And then we said, well, we want to really experience life in Germany. So we want to hitchhike and get to know people. So that's what we did. And what we would do in the hitchhiking is we would trade stories with people. We would tell our stories. We would hear their stories, practice our German, and we kept a journal. We somehow convinced the professor to be graded on this journal. So it was kind of, anyway, that was one of my first writing experiences. At Carleton, I was a biology major. But I found that I really like science, but I also really like people. So I thought a good way to combine those interests of mine was to go to medical school. So that's what I did after Carleton. And I'm a doctor. I'm a pediatric cardiologist. So I take care of kids with heart problems. And one of the problems comes with my job description is sometimes kids, if you're taking care of kids with a lethal heart condition, sometimes they die. And that was, it's never pleasant, but I used to take it really personally, and I would feel like I failed. I would beat myself up. And I found that writing has really helped me process illness and death. And so because of that, I actually started a writing program at my hospital in 2013. So it's been about 7 years this has been going. What you're going to need for the talk, so if you have a chance to grab this, something to write with, either a notebook or paper or pen, which is my first choice, or since I'm old and some of you are young, you may like an electronic device, which also works, but sometimes it's a different experience. So why I'm writing nowadays, even in the COVID era, is you might have noticed there's a lot of change and stress. And my father, unfortunately, had an unexpected death in March. And so it was 2 months ago today, I had my last conversation with him, and he was planning on me coming out there, and he was fine until he wasn't. He was found face down with a flatline EKG and not breathing. And he ended up dying a couple of weeks later. And I couldn't be with him at the end. I did fly out to be with him even in the beginning of this COVID thing. But they kicked me out of the hospital, so I couldn't be with him. There was no funeral. And so as a result of that and everything else that we're all going through, I'm stressed, and I found that writing helps. So interestingly, this is the mission statement that we came up with at my, we have a group, we meet once a month, and it's really kind of a spiritual experience. It's with people at the hospital, it's patients, nurses, doctors, respiratory therapists, secretaries. It's kind of a motley crew, but I just love them. And this is what we came up with. Well, what are we doing when we get together? Well, and what's the point of our group? Well, this actually fits pretty closely to what I was doing back in my Carleton program in Germany with my friend Bob. We tell stories, listen closely, write, and share. Now, the next part is to the hospital. Why do we do this? To facilitate healing, rehumanize healthcare, and increase capacity for empathy and self-reflection. We practice learning how to tell our stories and receive other people's stories. And till I did this talk, I didn't really realize that it all goes back to hitchhiking. So hitchhiking is not the thing now because it's an enclosed space and it's probably dangerous. It probably wasn't smart at the time, but somehow we did fine. This is our writing group at the hospital. This was our holiday party. And just to make a little disclaimer, this is pre-COVID. So we're meeting on Zoom meetings now. And interestingly, our group has grown where we used to have like about maybe 10 or 15 people per month. Now we've increased, we have 20 to 25 people. So it's actually more people and we've gone to twice a month meetings because people have said, we really need this right now. So there's actually some science showing that doing expressive writing, writing about difficult things is very beneficial for your health, believe it or not. So here's a few examples. There was a study that was done looking at asthma and arthritis, and it turns out that the symptoms of asthma improved. Your pulmonary function tests, they would have people do pulmonary function tests who were asthmatics, and half the group would do write about a difficult experience or write about something that was emotionally difficult for you. And other people would just maybe make a list of your groceries or something, not quite as, emotional. And the people who wrote about the emotional things, you might think they did worse, they actually did way better. And the same thing with symptoms of arthritis got better. People with high blood pressure, guess what? Their blood pressure got better. People with HIV had, you check your immune function. It's kind of a key thing if you want to survive HIV and do well. And the people who had HIV had improved immune function if they wrote about difficult things. So it's like very bizarre. Like these don't seemingly have much to do with each other. And they even did this study where they did punch biopsies in old people, which I'm qualifying for, I guess, recently. But they found out they checked how fast did their wounds heal up, and they healed up faster if they did this expressive writing. So that was really interesting to me. But the problem is that I'm a practicing doctor, and doctors don't use writing to help their patients. And I like looked through the literature, like, this is really good. What do I do? And there was nothing in the literature saying, how do you do this in practice? And, I'm aware that there's limited time. And if you say to doctors, oh, I got something that's going to take a little bit of extra time, they're like, I don't have any time. Everyone says, I'm too busy. And I found absolutely no studies about how to use writing in practice. And so and patients and healthcare providers don't think of themselves as writers. So what do you do when you have a situation like this? Well, you make something up. So that's what I did. So I'm going to talk about this thing, which is now called the 3-Minute Mental Makeover. And we started this in February 2016. I've now done this personally with over 4,000 people. I do it in my practice, in the hospital and clinic. Everyone has done the exercise. I first had this doctor idea, like, I'm going to tell you an exercise that's going to help you, but it's not for me. I'm the doctor. I just tell you what to do. Like, you write a prescription and you give the prescription out, and then they do it. Well, basically nobody did their writing, and everyone's like, I don't really like writing. My friend Jim, at a Carlton reunion, I said, oh, you want to come to my writing thing? He's like, I hate writing. I go, well, you have to do it because you're my friend. And he goes, okay. So I found out that if I say we're going to write together, then everybody does the writing exercise. And so I decided to do a research project because it seemed like, wow, this seems to be really doing well. So we actually published this in the current issue of the Permanente Journal from winter 2020. And it's called Healthcare Practitioners and Families Writing Together is the name of it. And so I'll talk about the study a little bit, and then I'll teach you what you do. So we did a pre-writing survey, and the patient and the provider do the writing together, doctors and nurses writing with their patients, and then we did a survey afterwards. We ended up with 96 patients and families, 8 healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, a psychologist, and a learning behavioral specialist. So it was a lot me, but it was other people too. And we had a total of 152 surveys. And what we found when we looked at the symptoms, what kind of stress are you going through? It was a lot of stuff. And I think that this was helpful for the hospital. A hospital medical experiences, they are stressful. And it's stressful not just if you're the patient, it's stressful if you're the doctor. And I think all of this is probably, if you're going to do the same study now, it's probably worse in the COVID time. But this is pre-COVID. And we found out that we have a lot of the same problems. So decreased concentration, pretty high for patients and families and providers. Exhaustion, very high for both of us. Frustration were high. Increased caffeine intake, what I thought was interesting, was much higher for the doctors than for the patients, and not sleeping enough for both of us. So we're all stressed out. But what happened when people did this writing exercise, the 3-minute mental makeover? Well, it turns out that it lowered stress. So if you look at the left-hand side, the blue on the far left, went down, we ranked, said, say how stressed out you are. And this is the median ranking for doctors, was the blue. And so they went from a 4 to a 2. And a 5, this is on a 1 to 5 scale. So 1 would be, I'm not stressed at all. And 5 is like, I'm maximally stressed. So it was a significant drop in stress. And for patients is the more, I guess, bluish green. And they also dropped from a 4 to a 3. But it was the p-value, if any of you know in statistics, it was less than 0.001. So that means there's a 99.9% chance that this was not a random finding, that this was a real improvement in stress. And then when we looked at communication on the right-hand side in the blue, that shows the doctors and nurses. When we asked ourselves, what do you think how do you think you're communicating back and forth between your patients? And we gave ourselves pretty high grades, a 4, and it went to a 5. And the patients, well, this is the median, so it's a 5 to a 5, but it was a 4.7 to a 4.8, which is not statistically significant, but this is on a 5 scale. To have patients saying, we feel we're a 4.8 out of 5 or a 4.7 out of 5, that's really good, because communication, if you didn't know it, is not always so good in the hospital. So this is a sign that, and maybe we spent the extra time and they said, hey, someone's actually asking my opinion. But I thought that was a plus thing. So people felt there was communicating. So we said, well, maybe, you know, were these people who were writers in the past? Maybe I just happened to get all the English majors. Well, we asked them, have you used journaling in the past to help with difficult experiences? And we said, and the green are the people who said, yes, I have used writing to deal with this. So there were about a third of the people. It was, I think 34% said, I strongly agree or agree with this. Yellow is neutral, and the red and the orange were people who said, I disagree. I have not used journaling in the past, or I strongly disagree. So most of the people were actually not writers, but we said, was it helpful? Yes, it was helpful. So the green is people who said they either strongly agreed or agreed that this writing thing was helpful. Yellow is neutral, and nobody disagreed with this. And we said, well, what did you like? You know, tell us, you know, what did you like about this? And they said, time, true sincerity, care, concern, and passion. Deeper, more personal, feel like a real team. Sharing with my mom and doctor, and made me think of things other than the present. I was able to write something down that I usually don't share. It's easy to do, and my favorite one, it's short. So let's get out your piece of paper, and I'm going to make myself do this too. And so we're all going to do a 3-minute mental makeover right now. So get your paper in hand or your electronic device. And the first thing is, we're all going to write 3 things down that we're grateful for, but I want you to be specific. So a lot of people will say, I'm grateful for my mother. Well, you can say I'm grateful for my mother, but you say, when my mother told me a joke, I was grateful for that. Or you could say my dog. Well, you can say my dog, but I'm grateful when my dog gives me a kiss or something. So doesn't have to be deep, but 3 things that you're grateful for. So do that right now. Okay, so finish up with that. And then the next thing sounds totally impossible, but I promise you it's not. And we're each going to write the story of our life in exactly 6 words. So it could be a sentence like, I hate life in the pandemic. Or it could be just 6 words that say something like born, school, work, 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 work. Or it could be 6 places you lived. Or it could be basketball, dancing, music, sleeping, hamburgers. You know, any 6 words that say something about your life today, or, you know, this month or this year, or your whole life. Okay, and then the final thing we're going to write is 3 wishes. So you pretend you rub a magic lamp, a genie comes out and says, I will grant you any 3 wishes. And they could be completely ridiculous, impossible things. Like, for instance, oh, I want to go back and watch the pyramids being built. Well, guess what? You can't do time travel, but you can sure wish for it. Or I want to fly around the world, and or I want the sun to come out, and I hope that I see a flower today. So it could be things that could happen, or I want ice cream for dessert. Any 3 wishes for yourself or for the world. So write that down. Okay, so finish up with that. And I guess right now we're just about done. I'm going to just ask if there are, if there are any questions, you can unmute yourself, or actually what you could do is you can go to the chat room and write down the questions you have, and I will read those off if you have any questions. Okay, so write the questions in chat, and I'll try my best to answer, and my questinos, I didn't spell that right. So, and then, so what do you do? Well, we will have a chance after we go offline to ask questions, or to go offline and ask questions, but we'll have a chance to share things. So if you have questions, write them on the thing, and I'll talk about those, but we'll go offline. And how do you use this thing? So now I've taught you, now you're all experts in the 3-Minute Mental Makeover. Feel free to put your questions in chat, and I'll go over those. But how you use this is, you can write in your notebook every day. And it's been really helpful for myself getting through this unexplainable thing of my dad dying, and I have a lot of strong feelings coming up. It really helps you get through the day and figure out tomorrow. It's really powerful if you write and share with a friend or loved one. So if you're stuck in a place with like a boyfriend or girlfriend or a loved one, if you write with them and share what you have, it's amazingly powerful. And it can help build relationships. You could even do it remotely. If you're on a Zoom, you could do it together. And it oftentimes is a springboard to write more on the things that come up. So if you go, well, this is just a short little thing, but this one really feels powerful. You can, write a poem, or just write a letter, or just scribble, whatever. It's very helpful. So if you have any questions, so this is, while I'm going to go through, and I'll leave this up while I'm going through I'm going to check what's on chat now. But if you have questions, feel free to email me. This is my email, david.thoele@advocatehealth.com. If you're stressed out and you want an easy breathing exercise to increase mindfulness and decrease stress, this is YouTube. It's called Dr. Dave's Deep Breathing. I'm Dr. Dave. So I made up this thing and recorded it. It's because of kids with chest pain get this musculoskeletal pain. So it's designed for that, but I found out it's really anti-anxiety. So if you do this funny way of breathing, it helps. And if you want to read the story, it's in the Permanente journal, which is an open access journal, and that's the link to that. So I'm just going to see if there are any things under my chat. If I can figure out chat, I'm like...
David, I'll just read you. The
great.
question that we have for you is about how much time do you spend journaling on a typical day?
Excellent question. And it varies a lot. So the lowest amount I spent journaling is 0. So there are days when I don't do any writing. I'm like, yesterday was one of those days. I had a full day of clinic, and I'm, kind of a nut. So I have always been a bike rider. So I rode my bike. I live by Wrigley Field in Chicago, and I rode up to Park Ridge, which is about 12 miles away. So I rode up and rode back, and I had a full clinic day, and then you got to do all this extra hand washing and masking and things. So I didn't write at all yesterday. Today I've been journaling like crazy. I've probably written for about 45 minutes today. So it varies a lot. But I found out, even though I call it the 3-Minute Mental Makeover, like the first time, if you time out how much time I just gave you, it was more than 3 minutes. But if you get rid of the instructions, if you do this, you can have a meaningful thing for 2 minutes a day. I've done this 2 minutes, and oftentimes with my patients, I'll write with several. If there's people having a rough time, I teach them this. And is that the question? Any other questions?
It doesn't look like we have any more in the chat. So I think this is a great time for us to thank you, David, and we'll end the recording.